Moving on to other matters, a dramatic and chaotic scenes. No, not, I'll take that again. Dramatic and chaotic scenes unfolded yesterday at the National Secretariat of the opposition People's Democratic Party, popularly known as Wadata Plaza, as rival party camps squared off in an attempt to gain access to the party's headquarters, known as Wadata Plaza in Abuja. What was meant to be a routine political engagement at the People's Democratic Party National Secretariat in Abuja on Tuesday quickly descended into one of the most emotionally charged confrontations the party has witnessed in years.
Now, the rival factions refused to give ground as police fired repeated rounds of tear gas, sending governors, party officials, staff, and journalists scrambling in confusion.
Right now we are live.
What we're doing today is to have a meeting to discuss the affairs of the party, and that's all we're doing. There is no convention. What you saw there was a pre-Christmas party, and of course, the governor of Oyo State also opened the motor park garage. You know, we invited party members to come and witness.
If anybody loses their life in this place, Seyi Makinde and Bala Muhammad should be held responsible. These people are violating court order.
It's a legal issue. You should report what is on the ground. It's a creation of one man called Wike, who thinks that he can continue to pollute the political space by showing gangarism, animism, and hooliganism and charlatanism. And by so doing, he is not helping even the present administration. What is causing all this? We should go by the rule. Arrogance and impunity. You see, we were going, the access to go, they will go, but the police are sneaking people in. This is our secretariat. If they want to say they have a so-called faction, they should go somewhere. All the governors are here. All the senators, all the members of the House of Reps. Why is the media backing them as if they have something in common with us? The police should know that this is not a faction. It is just a splinter group. They want to scuttle and destroy PDP, destroy the opposition.
I want to call on President Trump. What is at stake is not just genocide against Nigerian Christians. He should come and save democracy in Nigeria. Democracy is under threat. I'm calling on all other developed nations, all advanced democracies, come and save Nigeria, come and save democracy. Because I cannot understand how a serving minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will be leading talks, armed talks, and then with the active connivance or support of the police to come and create mayhem here. I have said it, we are willing to lay down our lives to protect our office, to protect our democracy, to protect our mandate. So Nigerians, you are watching what is happening. International community, you are seeing the threat that Nigerian democracy is. Come and save us.
Is the one who is in the SUV, and Governor Bala Muhammad is right.
And now, with all that's unfolded, you just watched all that clip there. So just start with the first part of this discussion, right, and go in depth. And to do that is the newly elected National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, and that's Comrade Ini Ememobong. He joins us live now. Comrade, a very good morning to you and welcome to the studio. Welcome to the program. Now, Comrade Ememobong is joining us live from Abuja studios. Now, Comrade, who conveyed the NEC meeting at the PDP National Secretariat in Wadata Plaza, and on what authority was that venue selected, given rival claims of NEC sessions elsewhere?
All right, so the National Executive Committee of our party can only be summoned by a notice jointly signed by the chairman and secretary inviting INEC as an observer. And it stipulates the number of people who are there: governors, former governors, members of the NWC, spread all across. And therefore, as at yesterday, the only person who had the moral and legal authority to convene a NEC meeting was and remains Kabiru Tanimu Turaki. So that wasn't so. But we had hints that Samuel Anyanwu, the expelled former national secretary of our party, had issued an illegal notice purporting to attempt to call a meeting there. But incidentally, that coincided with the period we're going for the inaugural meeting of our executive. And we went to the Commissioner of Police, had a meeting with him, laid out our plans that we are going to that national secretariat because we just came straight from Ibadan and we needed to have a day for other people to join. Then we were going there on Tuesday, and we informed him. We went to the Commissioner of Police and mentioned to him that we're going there and that we're aware of this notice, and we are peace-loving people. But the next morning we saw on the social media Sam Anyanwu saying that they had invited the police to help deal with intruders. And by the time we arrived there, with the national chairman, members of the NWC, members of the National Assembly, and supporters who came to witness, and governors who came to witness the event, they were tear-gassed. They were prevented from entry and tear-gassed at the gate. And that led to stampede with people sustaining different degrees of injury. Serious tear gas were fired at everyone. That's what happened yesterday. So what ordinarily would have been the inaugural meeting of the party became something very, very, very shameful. And now the office of the secretary, for example, under our constitution, the exercise of that office, assuming but not considering that Anyanwu says he's the secretary, assuming if he had not been suspended and expelled, assuming but not considering, you would know that by our constitution, the constitution says that he would exercise the duties of the office in consultation with the national chairman. And he and Abdurrahman wrote to INEC on the 6th of November. INEC wrote back to them, informing them that they were not recognized. So yesterday was an illegal attempt to continue the series of illegality that they had been undertaking in a bid to stifle democracy, to help railroad a one-party system. That's what happened yesterday.
Now, well, we're going to go on a short break. Just very quickly, we need you to just hold off for us. Let's go on a short break. And when we return, we're going to be talking about, the reports about the parallel NEC meetings, as well as Board of Trustee meetings at the Secretariat. But most importantly, the clash that occurred at the Secretariat. After the break, stay with us.
You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, join us live for this important discussion on the events that happened at the PDP Secretariat in Abuja. Yesterday, we had the newly elected National Publicity Secretary joining us live from our Abuja studios, Comrade Ini Ememobong. You're welcome. Thanks for staying with us. Now, your opening submission, you did mention that Kabiru Turaki is the legitimate national chairman of the party, having been elected at the Ibadan convention. Having said that and seen the pushback from the 11 members of the PDP that were expelled at the Ibadan convention, and the show of shame, literally tear-gassed the madness we saw, for lack of a better word, in Abuja yesterday. Where does that leave the PDP? What is next for the Turaki-led PDP? How do you take this, knowing that the expelled members are not, they've also gone ahead to expel some of your own members? So where does that leave us? Are you going to seek legal redress to address this situation?
Well, there are circumstances where you do know that people lack the capacity to do what they claim they are doing, and the people themselves know. There is an adage that says that in court, both parties do know what the truth is, that is the judge that is on trial. So both of us do know what the truth is. both of us do know that the National Executive Committee, assuming but not considering that even a full National Executive Committee could have been convened and convoked, that the National Executive Committee, by our constitution, cannot undertake disciplinary actions. They can only make rules for disciplinary action. That the only body that has the capacity to expel members is the National Convention. They know that. So it's placing something on nothing and expecting it to stand. It can't stand. It's a time-tested, efficacious, literary, legal maxim that you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. The subsequent expulsion, the purported expulsion of the people they said, is on nothing, absolutely nothing. Incidentally, it's coming at a point where the INEC, the supervisory body, is even telling them that we don't know you. Now, so going back to the convention, Anyanwu and Damagum signed a notice of convention and compulsorily, within the time frame of the law, served INEC that notice informing them of Ibadan. Thereafter, he was part of the planning, the inauguration, the processes that led to the National Convention Organizing Committee, for Ibadan. Midway, maybe an afterthought, maybe a discovery that the generality of the people are not in sync with what you're doing, because it is clear that the whole essence of this is to weaken the PDP so that it does not have the capacity to provide viral opposition. So as an opposition party, look around and ask whenever they have spoken against the government, and the litany of things happening, including the security issues that happened recently. Is it the one in Kebi? Is it the one where Major General has been killed? They are more interested in destroying. The guns are facing inwards. They are more interested in destroying the people who are trying to offer a viral opposition upon which democracy rests, which is why we are saying that it is not a threat only to PDP, it's a threat to democracy. And so the truth of the matter is that you cannot put, it's an after the fact matter. You cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. They were expelled by a properly constituted convention. If they have issues with that, then they are in court. All of us are in the court of appeal on the matter that would determine whether the convention was legally constituted or not. So the attempt to take laws into their own hands and convene events and meetings that they are not legally empowered to do so is not just provocative, but it is intentionally intended to create crisis and cripple the main opposition, like they've done to other opposition parties. And clearly, like the chairman has said, we are willing to resist, we are willing to fight this to any extent to ensure that democracy survives. Electoral democracy stands on pillars, one of which is the sanctity of the ballot, a viral opposition. And they cannot, working for, clearly, their leader says he's supporting the president for 2027. The constitution upon which Anyanwu swore on his inauguration says that PDP will file candidates in all the elections. So how do you reconcile those two positions? And so the intent is clear. The intent is clear, and therefore both the intent and the action are in sync. The mens rea and the actus rea both have a consensus, and we can assure them, which is why you heard the chairman asking that the international community should intervene. And so when people ask, I say, yes, democracy was sold to Nigeria like it was sold to other parts of the world. We had a different governance system. It was sold to us on the promise that better human rights, better economy, and things will happen within a democracy. And who are those who sold democracy to us? It was America, it was the European Union, it was the UK. And so they sold it to us. So if that democracy is under threat, and if you check, our neighbors, most of our neighbors now are governed not by democracy. And if ours is under threat, do you know what would happen if democracy is under threat in Nigeria? Not just to the sub-region, not just to Africa, but to the entire world. Do you know how many Nigerians will be seeking asylum everywhere? And you're trying to threaten the fabric that holds the country. The worst democracy is better than the best of any other governance. And that is why we are insisting that this democracy must survive. And democracy must survive on the terms that are laid out. A viral democracy, elections must not just be uneventful events. Elections must have a critical element, which is institutionalized uncertainty. What happens when an election is 6 months ahead and everyone knows, oh, this person would win? That is not an election, it's just an event. So these are the things we are fighting against. We are fighting against electoral authoritarianism, where people want to sit and donate the candidates to different parties, and so railroads the government in power back to stage. And so that is where we are at the moment. And we do know that all of these are distractions to prevent us from providing a viral opposition. But we can assure government, while we are handling them, we'll be handling government too.
I'm yet to see a statement from the PDP regarding what's unfolded both from yesterday and the day before regarding the abduction of the Kabiru girls. But there are two things here I want you to react to. First, the allegations of Samayanwu claiming that his signature was sent to INEC before the convention was forged. Before the convention, it was forged and was sent to INEC, and it wasn't his signature. The second is the fallout that happened yesterday at the secretariat, and what this means for the different state or sub-states for the PDP. As we're going into 2027, there's River State, which of course haven't shown, they've very clearly showed that they're aligned with Wike. And we've also seen the Governors Forum as well, Mufwang just being on the sidelines and asking for peace. And so one has to ask, as we're going into 2027, the federal caucuses within the PDP, what would be the practical step for the PDP within the PDP's Governor Forum to sort of cohesive unity? Because you're losing sides. You know, there's defections, there are those who haven't clearly stated where their loyalty lies. What does this mean going into 2027?
Okay, first let me go back to the issue of the statements. We have issued statements on the abduction of the girls in Manga. We've issued very strong statements, and the days ahead we will continue to drive that down. We demand that those girls be brought back, and we demand that the president, in fact, yesterday when we saw the number of policemen that were deployed to our party secretariat, we are suggesting to the president to add those policemen to the soldiers who are fighting in the theater of war, to add them there to go and help, because they were very energetic with the tear gassing. If they were tear gassing bandits like that, I'm sure that those girls would have been back. So we've issued a statement asking the president that the primary function of every government is the protection of lives and property. And whenever and wherever that is not satisfied, that president in the first instance must accept responsibility instead of playing ostrich. And where consistently he's unable to do, he should do the honorable thing of resigning. And remember that this president, remember the role of this president during the Chibok girls. And today he is faced with that opportunity to show Nigerians what he would have done with the Chibok girls. MAGA is a case on his laps. We are inviting Mr. President to do the utmost to ensure that our girls are brought back and safe. We do know what your position then was, and we're asking, do that exact thing. The prescription that you gave at that time should still be valid at this time. So we're asking Mr. President to do that. Now, going to the issue of unity and cohesion. In every democracy, whether it is internal within the party or inter-party, the operative rule is that majority will have their way, but minority would have their say. And you do know that the situation that we have at hand is a circumstance where a lot of people have been coerced into defection. And when you see them sit on TV to speak, they say different things. They say, oh, our party has problems. But when you meet them privately, they tell you, look, these people, the elections are already over. And so, with that, when people are nearly livered, you've heard Governor Dauda say that, look, I have been threatened, but I don't care. I will stay with PDP and I will go for elections. How many people would have that kind of mindset? So within the party, we have unity of purpose. And again, when issues of politics are involved, it is per time and per issue. So I and you could agree on one issue relating to the camera I'm looking at, but on the issue of the microphone that we'll be talking, and you could have another. But now the truth is, immediately we are more than two and we get into three, majority would have their way, but minority will have their say. So for example, Governor Finchu was the chairman of the convention. He did excellently well from the first day he was inaugurated up until the convention. Excellently well, sacrificed, meetings, did everything, meetings to reach consensus. But on that day, he disagreed with one item, which was the expulsion. But that is what true democracy is. And that shows even the humility of the governor to accept that, look, I do not agree, and I've made my position clear, that I do not agree with this particular decision. That does not invalidate the decision, despite the fact that it's a quality disagreement. But quantitatively, which is what democracy uses to judge, quantitatively, the decision was taken, the motion was taken and carried in convention. So, does that pit us against each other? No. The national chairman of the party is in talks with Governor Fintri and the rest. They have objections as to items. There were more than 5 motions that were taken that day. And you can imagine that maybe some people were not happy with some other motions, but majority would always have their way. But we are a party where at least the minority can have their say. And we can say today in Nigeria, we are the only political party where that can happen. You can't try that even in the ruling party. Would a minority have its say even in what they don't agree? No, they will have to keep quiet. But here, the majority will have their way, but would ensure the protection of the voice of the minority, that they can have their say. So the gentlemen, the governor of Plateau, governor of Adamawa, are excellent gentlemen and party people who have contributed in no small measure to the success of that convention. And they came there themselves. And they also have a right to say, I am not aligned with this decision.
Comrade, but did that play out as during the convention? But unfortunately, we do have to go on a short break. But when you come back, I do have to ask whether this fair hearing that you're speaking of, majority and minority, whether it played out, they had their say, at the convention or even yesterday. But let's go on that short break. When we return, we'll get in depth into the discussion. After the break, stay with us. And welcome back. We have been discussing the chaos that played out yesterday at the Wadata Plaza at the PDP secretariat. Joining us is Comrade Ini Ememobong, who is the National Publicity Secretary for the PDP. We've been talking about pretty much the convention, the Board of Trustee meetings, and all that ensued yesterday at the secretariat. But before we let you go, you were talking about how, other governors and other minorities and majority have a fair say and they can speak their piece on this matter. But given all that unfolded yesterday and giving the push from factions, whether Wike or Turaki factions, one has to ask whether there would be an avenue or a platform for that fair hearing that you speak of.
The concept of majority and minority is the protection of minority voices. And now, so talking about fair hearing, remember that the people, most of the people who were expelled at the convention were suspended and referred to a disciplinary committee. The position of the law is that you give room for fair hearing, but if the person whom room has been given to partake in fair hearing, to exercise that right, abdicates that right, there's absolutely nothing. The person forecloses himself from because you can't compel attendance for hearing. And so clearly, the opportunity for fair hearing was set by the last administration, but obviously the people didn't take it. In fact, rather than take it, they took to television to double down on threats and to undertake activities capable of derailing the party. More than anything, one of the key principles that we uphold in the PDP is that there is an internal mechanism for a resolution of conflict. And parties, people within the party are encouraged to explore these means before you go to court. So these means of internal discussions and negotiations must break down first. But you would see in the circumstances the negation, abdication of this principle, and people just hurry to court, all in a bid to stampede the party. And you can't do that. So people were expelled. And speaking about that, all of us are in the Court of Appeal. And the matter will end in the Supreme Court. The judgment of the Supreme Court will determine, the outcome of the convention. One, was legal notice given? Was it given within time? So, having done so, because when you look at the processes that led to it, notices were given, activities, and they were part of the activities leading to, and only to turn around and plead non-ex facto. You're talking about your signature, and you wrote to security officials, you wrote to what has been the outcome of that. So the issue of signing or not signing is a matter of fact which he needs to prove, and he who alleges must prove. So he knows what to do about that. He's taken steps about it, and I don't know how far that has gone. But the truth at this moment is that on 10th of November, INEC has written back to him, and they've concealed the letter. But unfortunately, it's a public document which is out that we can't recognize. We don't know who you call chairman. So how was Anyanwu suspended? 14 members of the National Working Committee sat, and the Constitution makes the chairman of the party the chief executive. In fact, gives him wide powers to assign roles to people. So like I'm publicity secretary now, the current chairman of the party, Turaki SAN, can assign my role to another, and by that constitution is very valid. And insist that the secretary shall, though being the chief administrative officer, shall exercise the functions of his office in consultation, that is subjugative, in consultation with the national chairman. And so a meeting was convened, and 14 out of 18 suspended the people. And they now convene a meeting of suspended people to, again, suspend. I don't get that. I mean, so the intent is clear: to derail the party, frustrate democracy, and hand an easy victory to the ruling party. So our own intent is clear. We will protect democracy, and we will provide a viral opposition, both in politics and policy, to the ruling party.
Only time will tell whether or not Wike and his led faction will make that possible, and whether the courts will be in the way of that unity. But thank you, Comrade.
Thank you so much for your time, Comrade Ememobong. And like Judith said, when the Court of Appeal decides, we'll know which way to go. Thank you for your time.